Yes, good afternoon. On behalf of the Paris Committee on Capacity Building, I would like to give you all a very warm welcome to the 5th Capacity Building Hub. My name is Rosibel Martinez, and as a co-chair of the PCCB, it is my pleasure to welcome you all. Also, can we have a show of hands if this is the first time for any of you attending the PCCB, the capacity building? Oh, that's good to know. Can we see if is your second time here? Oh, there. So, has anyone been to all 5 of the capacity building hubs? Yay! There, there we go, Alejandro. Well, well, that's nice. Well, so as some of you already know, however, let's very quick build everyone's capacity about the PCCB. The Paris Committee on Capacity Building was established at COP21 in 2015. The committee seeks to address current and emerging gaps and needs in implementing and further enhancing capacity building in developing countries. The mission of the PCCB is to identify capacity gaps and needs and potential solutions, including enhancing the coherence and coordinations of capacity building efforts related to climate change. The PCCB fosters collaboration between actors at all levels, local, national, regional, and global, strengthening networks and partnerships to enhance synergies and promote knowledge and experience sharing. The PCCB also facilitates access to information and knowledge for enhancing climate solution and action in developing countries, as well for measuring progress on capacity building to ensure continuous improvement over time. As a hub veteran herself, I will now pass on the floor to my fellow co-chair, Roberta, to take us through the path of the capacity building hub.
Thank you very much, Rosibel. Good afternoon, everyone. And as Rosibel just said, we are very glad to see you all here today at the Capacity Building Hub, which is a direct response to the mission of the Paris Committee on Capacity Building in enhancing coherence and coordination in capacity building efforts under the Convention and the Paris Agreement. And as some of you already know, the Capacity Building Hub was launched at COP24 in 2018 in Katowice. It was our first one, started very small and organized quite right before COP, but since then the Capacity Building Hub really grown exponentially, and we had so far more than 200 organizations and 150 events since the beginning to today. So COP28 is really a milestone for the Capacity Building Hub, and we reflected to the journey that brought us to this point with a mix of happiness and sorrow because of the loss of Professor Salim Hook. And we cannot talk about the history of the Capacity Building Hub without mentioning Professor Hook, as we always used to refer to him as the father of the Capacity Building Hub. His passion and dedication to capacity building. He was a professor from Bangladesh, devoted to capacity building, and really helped us a lot in developing the events and the calendar of the Capacity Building Hub through these last years. And he passed away recently, and we will really miss him, and we are already missing a lot. It feels really strange to be in a COP in the Capacity Building Hub and not meeting him. So we would really like to pay a tribute to him, and we'll now play a video montage that captured the essence of his profound impact on the Capacity Building Hub.
Building as it had been done until then was really inadequate. And we, the least developed countries in the negotiations, challenged that paradigm, challenged that modality, and said two things have to be different. Firstly, capacity building has to be a long-term effort, not just short-term. And secondly, the investment in capacity building needs to be investing in capacities at the national level. So we need to invest in capacity building capacity. We got that in the Paris Agreement, so we have Article 11. It created the Paris Committee on Capacity Building. We then took that forward. The Paris Committee was set up. They set up their work plan. And as you heard, one of their major activities has been these capacity building hubs. So coming to the present, the hub that we have, we're kicking off right now, we bring together people who are working on capacity building. And we've done this for a number of years now. And it's a very, very effective modality of networking, getting to know each other, sharing knowledge and information, getting to know new people who are working in the same space as us, and taking that forward. And then the final point I'd like to make about the future of capacity building. There used to be a very strong emphasis on capacity building is needed in developing countries. This notion that the North knows, the South doesn't know, the North will give capacity to the South is redundant. It's no longer true. It may be true for emission reduction technologies, but it is not true for adaptation. So as we move forward in the capacity building realm, as we look at adaptation in particular, the knowledge transfer will be South to North. And that's a new phenomena that we should explore, see how we can do it more effectively. We can all learn from each other, and we need to have this new paradigm going forward. That's where my hope lies, that's where my work lies, is in encouraging the next generation to be bold, to be brave, and to break down these silos in the academic arena of knowledge generation, knowledge sharing. Speak a little bit about the past, the present, and
so his dedication and everything he did, his work will remain with us and really are an erasable mark on our collective effort at the Capacity Building Hub. So thank you for joining us in this commemoration, and let us remember and honor the legacy of Professor Salimuk, and thank you again for joining us in this. Now we are officially opening the Capacity Building Hub of this year, the 5th one, and we are honored to have with us today Mr. Daniele Violetti, who is a Senior Director, Program and Coordination Director of Means of Implementation of the UNFCCC Secretariat. So please, Daniele, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you, and it is really a pleasure to be here today in this opening, and also personally for I really knew Salim for a long time, and has been always a champion of climate change, and particularly in support of least developed countries. So anything that can be done to remember him and in his memory, it's really something that touches me also personally. But I'm here to replace our executive secretary, Simon Steele. He really wanted to make it to this also for Salim himself, but you know how he's working here. There is never a moment for our executive secretary for do everything. So I'm happy to replace him, but I would like to really read his statement, because he really wanted to be the one delivering it. So instead of doing my statement, I will simply read the one of Simon for all of you today. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'd like to begin today by acknowledging an absence. This is the first capacity building hub without Dr. Salim Haq. Salim was a hero of the climate movement. He was a driving force that helped create this space and a hero for climate justice and for developing world. His organization, ICAD, is also a long-time partner in this work. I didn't know Salim as well as many of you here, but these achievements speak for themselves. An IPCC author, lead negotiator, professor, scientist, and beloved father. He was named by Nature in 2022 as one of its top 10 scientists. More than all these things, though, Salim was always there as a friend, colleague, and a shoulder anyone can rely on. He attended every COP, and he was a driving force in creating this capacity building hub. He was there for many of you to answer questions, to make introductions, to write briefs, to give great interviews. Salim built capacity in the movement and in so many of us. But as well as remembering Salim, today is a day to celebrate his work and the work of this hub. So I'd like to welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to be here at the opening of the 5th edition of the Capacity Building Hub. The Paris Committee on Capacity Building has mobilized close to 150 diverse organizations, delivering 56 sessions across 6 thematic days. Capacity building, one of the pillars of the Paris Agreement, but in all the technical talk, it's easy to forget what it actually means. Capacity building is about bringing people together, people from around the world and across different disciplines, bringing them together to learn. An official slogan of COP28 is "Partnership promotes progress." This physical space embodies that line. It embodies the best in climate action. We build capacity in individuals, institutions, and in systems. We build capacity for things. Over the coming days, participants in the hub will build capacity for private finance, right-based climate action, and adaptation. The hub will build on indigenous people knowledge, hear the voices of young people, take account of human rights and the need for gender responsiveness, empowering everyone to take climate action. Let us work together to develop and share solutions. And recalling a line from Salim, let's make sure that we learn from the past to break down silos in the future. Now, I'm sure everyone is curious about these beautiful images. So without any further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Professor Tbilisi Marwala, Rector of the United Nations University and Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, to formally open the Co-Creating the Cities We Deserve photo exhibition. I thank you very much. And good to see you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, I would like to thank Mr. Daniel Violetti of the UNFCCC for your kind words. And of course, this is a very important moment for us, the 5th Capacity Building Hub. And when I talk about capacity building, I'd like to reflect on the wise words of my grandmother. My grandmother could not read, nor could she write, but she was a very wise woman. She once said that knowledge only becomes education when it finds a purpose in society and positively fulfill that purpose. And of course, for that knowledge to find a purpose in society and positively fulfills it, you need capacity. Without capacity, you are not going to achieve what needs to be done. Of course, we are here to deal with issues of climate change. Without capacity, all that we put into place is not going to be achieved. We can only win the fight against climate change with and in cities, but to do so, we need the commitment and participation of every part of the urban population. And that's what we had. This can only happen if people see a purpose and for themselves and their communities, and also are incentivized to take action. Of course, to achieve that, the narratives, the stories, leading by example is undoubtedly very powerful, more than any law or policy. We should be, and I have to quote Mahatma Gandhi here, we should live the world we want to see. Very, very important. Whatever we want to see, responsible consumption, responsible production, these are important attributes, but they are not going to be achieved if we don't live by them. And that, of course, means in our choices, in our daily lives, we have to live by these principles. And of course, the photo exhibition today, which we are going to showcase, exactly indicates that. The exhibition on the topic of co-creating the cities we deserve, capacity building for the changing world, was created as part of the Transformative Urban Coalitions project under the International Climate Initiative and the German government. The project supports cities to find joint solutions to become more green, inclusive, and sustainable. It develops new strategies for addressing local challenges in urban development and inequality, while at the same time reducing carbon emissions, including transformative communication. And one of these transformative communication outputs you can see today in this exhibition. And of course, all these things that ought to happen, and they must happen, this transition, this just transition, must not only be just, but it should also be seen to be just. This, of course, means the investments that needs to be invested in ensuring that this transition actually is just must happen. Commitments must be accompanied by action. The exhibition is a result of an international photo competition that yielded 534 photographs and descriptions from 51 countries. Contributors were asked to showcase their communities learning and working together to make cities more sustainable and livable. And of course, I come from the African continent, South Africa, and one of the biggest issues that is going to address the African continent is the rapid urbanization of the African continent, without necessarily the required infrastructure. And we are not talking about a population that is under 1 billion people. As we speak, 1.4 billion people live in the African continent. And this movement of people to urban centers is happening at an increasing speed. And the infrastructure that is needed is not being developed at the required speed. So the issues that I raise here, I raise them because as a citizen of one of the countries in the African continent, as a citizen of the world, as an Undersecretary General of the United Nations, I have vested interest in ensuring that a sustainable world comes to reality. And of course, the work that has been done here is beautiful. And the images highlight the power of collective action and show the constructive impact individuals can have to shape their communities and their environment and create positive change. In summary, this exhibition that we are going to witness actually highlights the most important point, that it begins with me. I am the change that I want to see. We are the change that we want to see. And we need to start acting in that way, in a sustainable way, to ensure that we can birth the sustainable world. And of course, understanding the importance of what is happening today, we need to ensure that the lessons that are learned are not only learned by us, but also the young generation. How do we take the stories of climate change and climate action to all corners of the world? I think it is through education. I think it is through going to the schools. I think it is through going to our communities and ensuring that the knowledge that we impart makes a positive contribution to society. So the photographs that you're going to see reflect on education. It reflects on knowledge. And of course, as I have already indicated, knowledge only becomes education when it finds a purpose in society and positively fulfills that purpose. They also indicate unity in action, solidarity, and collaboration. Climate action should not be a lonely journey. If it is a lonely journey, it is not going to succeed. There is a statement that is often said in South Africa: united we stand, divided we fall. And I think when it comes to issues of climate action, climate change, unity, solidarity, and collaboration are absolutely necessary. It is also about transformative communication and shared narratives. And shared narratives can only emanate from shared values. And as our Secretary General has already indicated many, many times, we don't have a crisis in values. Our values are the UN Charter and the Declaration of Human Rights. So we need to move to and live by these values and create shared narratives. And of course, part of this exhibition also is showcasing collective efforts in 5 cities across Latin America. And of course, we need to draw from them the inspiration that the climate action must happen now. Let me conclude by thanking UNFCCC and the Paris Committee on Capacity Building for the opportunity, as well as the project partners from the cities in which we work, two of whom are here today. And now I invite you to be inspired by the photos. The colleagues from Buenos Aires as well as UNUEHS team are happy to give you a tour. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Marwala, and also to Mr. Violetti for taking time from their busy schedule to be with us for the opening of the 5th Capacity Building Hub. And talking about the pictures exhibition, I would like to invite Mr. Violetti and Professor Marwala here on the stage to take a picture together to celebrate the opening of the Capacity Building Hub today. Thank you very much. So, thank you again for being with us for the opening. And now, as Mr. Violetti mentioned before, we have ahead of us a very busy schedule in the next 6 days. There will be 56 sessions here at the Capacity Building Hub, delivered by 150 organizations. And the lead partners of the thematic days have been really instrumental to organize, select the proposals for the side events and organize and shape the schedule for these days. So to them goes our gratitude, and we would like to invite everyone to really engage with the organization and the events taking place here at the Capacity Building Hub. Tomorrow we'll start off with the Effective Capacity Building Day, led by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Unfortunately, they are not able to be here with us today, but let's meet them tomorrow, and where they will showcase effective, innovative, and successful approaches and methods to ensure country ownership over climate capacity building and promote coordination approaches. Now, then on Tuesday, December 5th, we have the Capacities Day, Learning from and Transforming Our Cities, led by the United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security and ICLEI. And we'll have an intervention or not. Yes. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So you're hearing more about cities right now. Our rector already did introduce a bit, but we're also super proud about having the Capacities Day. So prompts to our communications team that found this super good name for that day. Now, actually, you'll be hearing a lot about the need to transform cities, but in a way that is engaging all stakeholders in urban transformation. And as said, as we've heard, it's been co-hosted by ICLEI and UNUEHS, and you'll be hearing super interesting sessions that are linking capacity building to urban development, on technology and innovation, on nature-based solutions, on building greener and more resilient cities. There's a gamifying session. There's a session around loss and damage for informal urban communities, which is also a super timely topic, and about co-creation for urban resilience, and it'll end on a high-level panel that brings it all together. Thank you.
On Wednesday, we will have the Private Finance Capacity Day led by 1.5 and Climate Policy Initiative, and we have someone from the 1.5 giving us more insight.
Thank you very much. My name is Miriam Medel, and I work at 1.5, which is a consultancy led by Ambassador Patricia Espinosa, the former Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC. I have to say, we are honored and humbled that we are very new. Our first activity in the context of the climate change process is with the Capacity Building Hub and in partnership with the Climate Policy Initiative. We have prepared a program basically to promote, to expand technical capacities in the private sector, but also from people to access, from different entities to access private finance, to understand climate risk and climate opportunities are duly considered into investment and into financing. We want to help, we have curated together with CPI and our colleagues from the UNFCCC Secretariat a program that aims to fully integrate the climate perspective into decision-making for private entities, also considering that the bulk of economies worldwide relies on small and medium enterprises, and they do need access to finance nowadays and need to become really, truly climate resilient. Ambassador Espinosa will be here with us with a high-level panel at the opening on the 6th, and then we have panels and activities by HSBC, the NDC Partnership, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and many other partners. So I invite everybody to come and to join us on December 6th, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure that the point of view and opportunities for and with the private sector will be very interesting for many of the participants. Then on Thursday, we are all talking, taking a much needed rest. Yes, because it will be the 7th, so the COP is closed. And then we will have a South-South Capacity Day led by Impulse South. And we have an intervention by Impulse South.
So good morning, and it's a pleasure to address to you all in the name of Fundación Avina and Impulse South. That's a Global South Alliance in building capacities, mostly for youth. And throughout the South-South Capacities Day, and also in the name of Fundación Avina, we are starting to enhance South-South cooperation on capacity building topics. And we are going through an agenda that will focus on different sectors and different topics on South-South cooperation, and mostly in adaptation, but we will have locally led projects, also including circularity economy and in climate action, and we will have this broad scope of topics, but also enhancing the South-South power, as everybody said before, and echoing the words of this opening that are much needed and much appreciated in the scenario of exchanging knowledge and also other capacities among actors that are not only mainly affected, but also agents in this climate justice and climate action and effective climate action. And I'm really happy and glad that we got this invitation, and I extend my my thank you to the PCCB that really works with us really close. And as a young Latin American person, I'm really happy to hold this day with our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. On Saturday 9th, we will have the Capacity for Right-Based Climate Action Day, led by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the OHCHR, and the Center for International Environmental Law, CIEL. And we have a representative of the OHCHR, please. You have the floor.
Thank Thank you very much, Rosita and Roberta. My name is Lomsat from Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. And first, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for PCCB to introduce the first Human Rights Day at the capacity building today. And this is really important because from our ongoing collaboration with PCCB, the online course on human rights and climate change, we have almost 23,000 learners. That means it's a need to build the capacities on human rights and climate change. And on the night, on the Human Rights Based Day, we aim to raise awareness about the linkage between human rights and climate change, including empower of the marginalized people. We have various topics, including gender and multi-stakeholder collaboration and participation, toolkits and other ways to improve capacity for climate justice and human rights-based climate action, sharing good practice, empowering marginalized groups such as youth, indigenous peoples, local communities, and human mobilities, including enhancing capacities of environmental and climate defenders. So I hope to see you all on the 9th of December. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A really big thanks to all the leading organizations that helped us shaping the schedule for the next 6 days. Finally, we will close the hub with the PCCB for NAPS Day. As usually the closing day of the Capacity Building Hub is dedicated to the annual focus theme of the Paris Committee on Capacity Building. And for this year, the committee's annual focus area is capacity building support for adaptation, with a focus on addressing gaps and needs related to formulating and implementing national adaptation plans. So the PCCB for NAPS Day is expected to feature discussion on capacity building for NAPS, including monitoring, evaluation, and learning for adaptation, subnational and local level engagement in national level policies and plans, mainstreaming human mobility into NAPS, as well as gaps assessment. And the day will also explore and discuss region-specific capacity building needs and solutions, as well as findings from relevant stakeholders and UNFCCC bodies and processes. So we really hope to see you all through the next 6 days, wishing you to get the best and have the best experience and interactions with all the actors that you will see here at the Capacity Building Hub. So having said that, I will pass the floor to my co-chair, Rosibel.
Thank you, Roberta. So as you know, the Hub is a space for representation and collaboration, inclusivity, and meaningful representation form the backbone of our approach. And the integration of cross-cutting issues across the Hub is essential to foster this. In order to assure that cross-cutting issues are mainstreamed across the PCCB's work plan, the PCCB has invited 5 cross-cutting issue experts. Umbrim Salim from SIC Feminist Research to Respond Network as the gender expert. I don't know if you're here, maybe you can raise your hand if you hear your name. Yoko Liu from Nyong'o as the youth expert. Yonson Cerda from the Conservation International, dedicated grant mechanism from indigenous people and local communities global project as the indigenous people's knowledge expert. Romshapt, oh, this is too difficult. This is Wachira, I'm going to write it down someplace. It's very difficult for me. But I know we all have been interacting in our monthly meetings. From the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights as the human rights expert, and Vosita Wijanawaki from the Slycan Trust as the Action for Climate Empowerment expert. And a new addition to the committee has been a modality expert. I think we all know him, and I think he's been to all the capacity building. You did not raise your hand, by the way. Greg Walker from mediators of Beyond Borders International to ensure that the hub promotes active and innovative modalities that foster meaningful engagement, dialogue, and collaborative learning for more meaningful interaction on capacity building issues. And lastly, on behalf of the PCB, we would like to thank the expert for all our engagements, who we will be seeing pop in and out through the thematic days of the hub, for supporting us throughout all the preparatory phases of the hub, and guiding lead partners and organizations in meaningful mainstreaming cross-cutting issues across the topics and modalities of the hub. We hope that this capacity building hub continues to be a space for experience and ideas, enabling more ambitious climate actions. With that anticipation, we are thrilled to officially open the 5th Capacity Building Hub. I now pass the floor to my dear friend Ridi Tuta from the Capacity Building Subdivision of the UNFCCC, who will facilitate a multi-stakeholder panel delving into the past, present, and the future of capacity building. Thank you very much.
Can we have a huge round of applause for our co-chairs, please? Fantastic work they've been doing over the years. It's our 5th Capacity Building Hub. We've had so many calls, so many organizations, so many meetings, and we're here. Thank you so much, both of you. So we're going to start off the panel. Yeah, you can leave it there, and you can give me that as well. Just some logistical changes as I... Yeah. There we go. Perfect. All right, we're good now. So welcome, everyone. My name is Ridi. I work for the UN Climate Change Secretariat. I'm within the capacity building team, and it's our absolute pleasure to have you here. Just a little bit about what the capacity building team does is exactly you heard from the Paris Committee on Capacity Building's co-chairs. So as the Secretariat, we support the constituted body. And one of the mandates of the constituted body is exactly this space, this event, the Capacity Building Hub. It's an annual event that happens at every COP. And we try to do something different for the opening every year. And as most of you would have heard, we've had many tributes to our beloved Professor Salim ul Haq. We dearly miss him at the Hub this year. And something that Professor Salim always used to frame all of his interventions at the Capacity Building Hub was the title that you see right there: the past, the present, and the future of capacity building. But before we delve into that, what do we mean when we say capacity building? So I'll give a very quick rundown of what we mean within the UNFCCC process. So we look at capacity building, which could mean skills, knowledge transfer, information, all of that at different levels. So we have it on an individual level of how individuals can, build their capacities to work in the climate action space, organizational level, and then for countries as well. So there is all of these different levels, but it's also always about its capacity building for something. So it's capacity building for adaptation, for access to finance. So as a topic, capacity building cuts the length and the breadth of the climate action space. So it's integral to everything that we are all doing here across the COP space and beyond the COP as well through the years. So we heard there's a need for long-term capacities. So we'll delve into that. But before, I don't want to speak a lot. We have a fantastic panel lined up. So could I just call all of the panelists up here as I introduce, and then I'll go into introducing everyone. So Prasadi, you can come up. Joanna, I see Natalie at the back. Natalie, if you could also join us, that'd be great. Who am I missing? Eva is back there doing a sound check because there's something really special towards the end of this session. So please stay tuned. That's a little bit of a teaser of what's going to happen at the end. Yes, please. All right, so we're missing one panelist, but we're hoping he joins soon. As you know, COP, there are multiple events, multiple calendars booked out. Right now, we're an all-female panel, but Eva is coming in, and we're going to balance the gender a little bit. So I'm going to start off on my left, Natalie, my lovely friend, but let's go on just a little bit of an introduction of what Natalie does, because it's a lot, so I'm going to run through that. Take your pick. Yeah, any chair, take your pick. So, Natalie Flores is an international public policy specialist with experience of over 13 years in the climate change policy, international development, and environmental issues space. In her previous roles and various roles in the government of the Dominican Republic, since 2010, Natalie has contributed to help understand, develop, and enforce the climate change agenda in her country. She was selected at the country's Article 6 Paris Agreement She was the lead technical negotiator, and most recently in 2023, she was also elected as the vice chair of the subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice. So we call that SubStar. Lots of acronyms going around here. So yeah, so she's also the vice chair of SubStar. But today she's here to share her personal story as well of how her capacity was built and her experience around the policy space. I will introduce AY next, because, yeah, you joined last. So AY here, he's a singer, songwriter, activist, speaker, and entrepreneur who uses his music to support global communities without access to electricity, model sustainability in his industry, and inspire global action. He's the founder and CEO of Battery Tour, as well as the Music Impact Initiative Project 17, and a UN Youth Ambassador. Over the past 10 years, he has performed 900 plus concerts internationally and has opened for artists. Now you need to hear this list: Wiz Khalifa, Shaggy, T-Pain, Flo Rida, Janelle Monáe, The Roots, many more. So I'm just going to leave some of them over here. But it's lovely to have you, AY, and looking forward to the little surprise you have towards the end for us. Up next, we have Dr. Joanna Nalau. She's a lead author in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, another acronym, IPCC, the 6th Assessment Report in Working Group 2. She's the co-chair of the Science Committee of the World Adaptation Science Program at United Nations and leads the Adaptation Science Research team at Cities Research Institute, Griffith University in Australia. Her research focuses on finding clues on how humans can better see into the future and make decisions to adapt to climate change. And she specializes in climate adaptation heuristics that are rules of thumb that guide decision and policy making in climate adaptation. So very lovely to have you. Then we just had Harjeet join us, so I'm just going to introduce him now. So Harjeet Singh is a global expert on the issues of climate impacts, migration and adaptation, and has been supporting countries across the world on tackling climate change. He's a member of the United Nations Technical Expert Group on Comprehensive Risk Management. These are really big words and a lot of acronyms that I have to get through today. Under the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage. He is the global political strategy lead of the Climate Action Network International. He has also co-founded Sata Sampada, a social enterprise that promotes sustainable and environmental solutions such as organic food and farming in India and beyond. So very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. Last but not the least, we have Prasidhi Singh. She's a social entrepreneur and founder of the Prasidhi Forest Foundation and the Green Pillar. She is a Prime Minister National Child Awardee, the highest civilian award for anyone under the age of 18 in India. She is a community builder, having mobilized more than 60,000 people through her work and has planted over 130,000 trees. And the most important number of all, she's only 11 years old. So all of that work done at 11 years of age is absolutely fantastic. So we have a fantastic panel set up over here, and as I kind of introduce the framing for this session, we're going to look at the past, the present, and the future of capacity building. We have a multi-stakeholder panel over here working on different bits and cross-cutting issues and, yeah, all sorts of collaboration. So we're going to explore that and more. So I want to actually start off with Harjeet. Given that your work with CAN International is Climate Action Network International is basically a network of 1,900 civil society organizations across many, many countries. I think from what I read, it was about 130 countries. And organizing those many civil society organizations takes a lot of capacity building. So could you walk us through what civil society organizations in the past have done to build their capacities, to organize themselves and create the networks that are required, and what's also going on in the present right now in our fight towards climate change?
Thank you. Okay, everybody else is mic'd up. Thank you very much for having me, and my apologies, I was in another event and it takes time, although it was the next building, which I realized later. So as you said, so we have close to 2,000 members. We are working in over 130 countries. And as a network, our members are our strengths. And members bring a lot of capacity because we have local, national, and international organizations working in various spaces and focusing on various issues and sectors. And that capacity is so valuable for us as a network. So what we have to do, and I'm being part of the International Secretariat, is how do we convene, how do we harness their their knowledge and making sure that it's available for rest of the network. And for that, what we do, so you see it as a positive sense, we call ourselves, in a way, we are a well-oiled machinery that actually works in a manner where we have various working groups on different aspects. We have co-chairs of those working groups who really work on those issues. And as I said, our members bring a lot of knowledge, and we do regular meetings. We have a full structure in terms of something called Policy Coordination Group that meets every week in different time zones to make sure that we cater to people around the world, being an international network. So we have a lot of systems and processes that really help us not only get the voices from the ground, but also make sure that we are able to analyze policies, and we share that analysis. And the process of having working groups where everybody learns from each other and contributes, I think that makes that a very participatory space where people can bring their perspective. And then, of course, through other structures like, as I said, PCG, where we do a lot more political discussion and connecting all that. Now, especially when we come to these big conferences, we get a lot more organized, and we have these processes where we start with morning meetings and following, but at the same time producing, you must have seen a newsletter called ECO, where we analyze what happened the previous day, what needs to happen. And we also organize capacity building sessions, where we go through each and every detail, and especially for the ones who have just started attending negotiations, on what these negotiations are, how to follow. As I say, it's your first COP, and if you're not lost, then there's something dramatically wrong. You must get lost on the day one, because that's what we all did. So what we do as a network is to just prepare them a bit more so that they are slightly less lost, and then they navigate, and we help them do that. Now, on your bigger question on what the issues are and capacity building, I would urge us to look at the issue of capacity building from a slightly different perspective. And this is where I would like to remember Salim, who I worked very closely with. And we shared that perspective, and we had, I know everybody claims that, I had some amazing bond with him. You can see a lot of selfies on his timeline, which he took with me, which he loved taking, actually. And yeah, so both Salim and I actually talked about this important perspective that capacity building is not just for the global south. I think it's not the right perspective to look at that global south does not have the capacity, and we are the ones from the global north are going to tell the global south, how things need to happen. You need to understand where, sorry, I'm taking a bit more time. If you allow me 1 more minute, I just want to set that tone also of how we look at capacity building. When we come to these spaces, the focus is on policy. And if you look at the composition of civil society organizations from the global south, you find that more than 95% of the organizations are actually working on ground more in the implementation space. And they are not accustomed to look at those policies in those great details the way organizations in the global north do. I would say it's absolutely inverse when you go to the global north. Majority of organizations are working on policy. So it happens very naturally that Global North organizations take a lead because these organizations know that policy lingo much better, and it feels as if developing countries don't have the capacity. That's not true. They have a lot more different capacity, and their perspective of what's happening on ground, how things can be operationalized, that's so valuable. And as we made sure, for example, as I said about the working group, we have co-chairs from Global North and Global South to bring that balance so that we learn from each other. So it's an ongoing capacity building effort that we do, also in terms of promoting equity. At the same time, create an environment where we learn from each other. Global North also has to learn. They need a lot of capacity building. Because they don't have the implementation experience, I can tell you, they get so many things wrong, so many times. So they need capacity building in terms of perspective, in terms of reality from the ground. So it's an exchange. Let's not look at capacity building, something traveling from the Global North to the Global South, and Global South organizations and individuals are just the beneficiary. I think we need to break that mindset and start looking at, we all need capacity building. Some bring different kind of skills, some brings different kind of perspective, and how we can have that exchange. And to me, that's the core of capacity building. This is how we need to look at. Sorry for taking a bit longer.
Thank you so much for that, Harjeet. I think that was fantastic. Earlier I said capacity building goes across length and breadth of the climate action space, and this adds another dimension that it also goes beyond just countries and borders, and there needs to be exchange that's not just unidirectional, it's multi-directional and multi-sectoral and collaborative. That being said, I actually want to go to Dr. Joanna now. Given that science is also something that's multi-directional, multi-sectoral, and like really the basis of everything that we do over here. So I just wanted to ask you on, in terms of your experience of how the academic sector has built its capacities of not just creating science, because that's anyways happening, but how do you make that accessible, and how has that evolved in the past, and what is it like in the present in terms of making science accessible and having that taken up by policymakers, but also by lay people? So what has that looked like, and what's the capacity building topic, which academics use quite a bit because they are capacity builders? What does that space look like within your space? Over to you.
Thanks. That's like 10 questions, but I think so. I work obviously at the university. So I do a lot of capacity building, and I think one of the really important things, especially with the UNFCCC process, is how we communicate that science. And so I spent a lot of time with my students, with my PhD students, but with other students as well, and national, international as well, talking about developing those skills and capacity in science communication in particular. But also trying to understand the context where you're bringing that knowledge. Because I think, and I loved your example that, Global North thinks they know, because they don't have the implementation experience. And one of the examples Salim loved bringing up is the floods in Germany and how many lives were lost and what damages, happened compared to Bangladesh, where people knew what to do. But it's also trying to understand the context where we are bringing in the science, trying to understand what the policymakers are trying to achieve, but it also does come down to skills in how we communicate that science. So being in IPCC has been an interesting journey. Because sometimes people come to me and say, I don't understand the language. Like, what is the SPM about? Like, can you just explain it in simple terms? And a lot of that science, it's some of the parts of the summary for policymakers I don't even understand, because it's not in the sector necessarily where I work. So we're doing, within IPCC, we do a lot of capacity building in the communication space as well. But also, how do you deal with people from different sectors and different disciplines as well?
Thank you so much. I think it's important where you said that it's about you need to get scientists also the comm skills, like the communication skills to be able to put their research out there for it to be taken up by policymakers, to be understood by people. So it's fantastic, the work that you're doing, and then we'll come back to you when we go through the round, as we are right now at the past and the present, and we'll quickly go through future messages as well. But speaking of traveling, I want to go to Ava, given that he has been traveling quite a bit with his battery tour. So as a storyteller, as a singer-songwriter, and within the music and entertainment industry, I think my question for you would be, is like, what does capacity building look like for the art sector, for artists, on how they engage and get involved with climate action? And I mean, you went through the process, and over the years, what have you seen as what's gone on in the industry? Would love your perspective on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. That was really good. Also, you're awesome, by the way. I saw you at Climate Live, the pavilion talking. Shout out to the UNFCCC team. Hey, in the back for bringing me. When you say process, it's interesting because like there was never a formula of what I do. Like when I started powering concerts with like 100% renewable energy in 2012, there was no manual to be like, hey, if you're an artist, here's how you do it carbon neutral. You know, so I've seen the phases of like a box to a trailer to what I did at Times Square like a month ago, right? When I had the big, huge 60-foot solar smart flower and I was trying to prove to the world that, hey, you can do Times Square with clean energy. You know, I think I'm just really bringing, or I think I'm part of the capacity building, and I think it starts with culture too. I think it has to be dope, it has to be cool. You know what I'm saying? It's why I'm making one song for each of the 17 goals, right? Because it's got to be dope to care about gender equality. So when I did the COP anthem, I did the COP anthem, this song with Gims and all these major artists, and we did the thing in the big room or whatever to kick it off like the other day. It's like, yo, songs about music for impact can be used. So I think I'll just say we're in the early stages of building the capacity, and we're kind of like creating the structure. Like it's coming along because the system is not built for it yet. So that's my answer.
Well, there's a lot to look forward to then, from going from like a table to a trailer to Times Square. That's exciting, and the kind of collaborations that you're doing. I know recently your song was within the Netflix documentary with Zac Efron. I don't know if anyone has watched Down to Earth, the season 2 of it. I know it was on there as well. So there is a culture shift that's happening, and I guess that's what we're all looking forward to as well. If some of you would have noticed, there's an entertainment and culture pavilion as well across, so they're doing a lot of exciting things over there as well. So just cross-promoting and making the COP the most collaborative and, space.
Yeah, and can I second off that? Like, when I started coming to COP like 3 years ago, like, by the way, I didn't know what the goals were. Like, there's a video that might play before I perform today. I think I might perform. But you see the Secretary General. He's like, AY, tell me what to do. You know, he's like, tell me what to do. And I remember looking at the goals when they, like, designated me to be a young leader. And I was like, bro, like, more people know. I told him, like, more people know Johnny Depp's relationship. Or like when Lil Wayne has a song. So I think to second your point is it's becoming that wave of like people are realizing music, culture, and arts is becoming cooler. We're getting there to build the capacity to make real change in terms of the music industry. But
thanks for that, Ava. We'll come back to you. But we're going to move to Natalie now. We've touched upon policy a little bit, and your experience of many, many years, of many, many different roles and hats that you've worn across the space. What has capacity building looked like and this is going to be a very loaded question, so I think you could speak from your personal experience and like narrow it down a little bit, but what has capacity building looked like for the policy space in terms of policy making and implementation? And I know we can go on and on about that, but from your experience, everything that you've done, what would be some of the key hits over there, the past and the present of it?
Okay, now, yes. And also, because I listen to everyone saying something, and I want to say something about what they say, like have a conversation, because it's very interesting. But in my personal experience, capacity building has played a key role. Like, I wouldn't be what I am, or I wouldn't be able to serve as a public servant or private sector or intergovernmental if I wouldn't have gone through a process of building capacity in general. So it all depends on the perspective that you want to give to what capacity building is. But in terms of what I have experienced, that for me it's sort of a privilege coming from a developing country, a small country, an island that is in the way of all the hurricanes, and that it's, 6 months a year we are affected by climate change. And yet, a lot of people do not understand what is happening, and they see what we are experiencing as something normal. Because in the Dominican Republic, we know we're gonna have hurricanes from June to November, and when a hurricane comes, everybody's like, oh, a hurricane. Like, if there's somebody that is not from the Dominican Republic, it's freaking out. I need to leave the country. What are we gonna do? I need to take the plane. And then we are like, no, like tomorrow everything is gonna be fine. But we normalize, like, in a bad way, that something really bad is happening when the storm is double the size as it was before, double the damage as it was like many, many years. And for example, 1 week before coming to COP, we had big flooding in the capital of the Dominican Republic, and nobody could relate that with a problem that we actually had because of a lack of capacity building at some point. So I've worked for the government for many years. Now I'm serving them as advisor to perform the SAPSTA Vice Chairmanship. And we've been through a lot of processes that relate to, first, understand that this is a convention in which parties come to negotiate a legal text. And sometimes, like, people do not understand that the matter of the negotiations or becoming a negotiator or having a voice in terms of what the legal text is, like, there's a lack in the capacity building regarding that. So people need to understand that this is a party-driven process, and that the party-driven process relates to the legal text that we are putting into place over here. So we sit together to put text into play for us to have a capacity building hub, to transversalize capacity building in all topics related to the convention, from GHG inventories to gender equality to vulnerability. So you have like a whole fan, like we say it in Spanish, un abanico de opciones, like a fan of possibilities that comes from a little decision regarding capacity building, and then you need to extrapolate that to your legal framework, because the convention has the same status of the constitution of each country if it was ratified. So then you have to put into place the policy to implement what you decided over here, and then come like the multi-stakeholder engagement to be able to make people understand that they need to be educated on certain issues. And my mother is an educator. She's been an educator like for her whole life. My father is an agriculture, and sometimes he doesn't relate that the issues that he's having in the field come from climate change. So at the same time, like, we have those lacks to go to the ground. So in general, I think, and as you know, the Dominican Republic led for many, many years the work on capacity building in terms of both Article 6 of the convention and putting into place the PCCB itself, right? And with that, we've been able to create multi-level engagement on how to build your capacity, both in the UNFCCC process, but also what the problem is. The other day, not the other day, a year ago, I was appointed as sustainability coordinator of the British Chamber of Commerce. And somebody did an interview for me, and I found it in YouTube like a year after, because I never saw it. And I sent it to my mom and dad. And my mom, the educator, came to me and she told me, oh, I finally understand what you do. And I'm like, but it's because, of course, I'm not talking in acronyms. I'm not telling her, oh, I'm going to the UN here, there. I'm explaining how everything relates and how, like, businesses in the, for example, in that video, businesses in the British Chamber of Commerce of the Dominican Republic can take advantage of the whole ecosystem that we've been putting together. And I can keep talking, so, but I'll leave it there.
It was a loaded question, but thank you so much for that, Natalie. I think something that I'm hearing across is making whatever we do in whatever sector it is more accessible so that, you know, within sectors we're able to communicate what's going on, but we're also able to communicate to beyond our sectors as well, right? We spoke a little bit about people working on the ground, and I know Prasiddhi has been doing fantastic work in India. So Prasiddhi, my question to you would be, is like, you're 11 years old. I was watching Cartoon Network at 11, and I hope you're doing that as well with all of the fantastic work that you're doing. You're taking time out for yourself to just be a kid, but given that you, I mean, we're looking at the past, present, and the future. You're the present and the future of capacity building as well. But that being said, over the last 11 years of your life, you have built your own capacity, and you have become a capacity builder. So, in terms of your experience, what has been your story? What has been helpful in your process of learning about, you know, the COP, the UNFCCC, the space, and becoming that, you know, community leader? What has been some of the key things that you have gone through and experienced?
Hello, everybody. Am I audible? Great. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be a part of this diverse panel. And I really like the topic, the past, present, and the future of capacity building. Because personally, as you mentioned as well, I really feel that the experience of the past, the action in the present, and the passion of the future is something that is very important. So talking about, you know, my journey, first of all. So for me, actually, most of my learning came from my experiences. Because working on the ground, it really helped me to strengthen my capacity to actually understand what is happening, through which I was also able to provide lots of capacity building projects for communities. So if I break your question in a few parts, so let me first start with my journey, because from always I've been a nature lover. But then at the age of 4, when Vada cyclone hit the shore of Tamil Nadu in the year 2016, so I'm from India and the southern part of India, Tamil Nadu, that is where I live. It is a coastal state which is always on the front lines of climate change. And when we experienced the Vada cyclone in 2016, the next day when I went out, I see all the trees were uprooted, the road was flooded, and trees being like my friends, I was so disheartened that I said that I actually had to do something and not just cry on the devastation. So then I started participating in these tree plantation drives. So from the age of 4 to the age of 6, for 2 good years, I just kept participating. And during this, I had so many learnings. You know, the reason why we should plant indigenous trees, the reason how the entire process is done, about afforestation, about agroforestry, about various different concepts, and even the basics. Because sometimes we actually lag in the basics, the very basic steps that are involved. And then slowly I also started, and that is how my capacity has always been building through my experiences. And if we talk about the projects I've been doing with the communities, because having planted 130,000 trees in 85 different places of India with several stakeholders from villagers, farmers, groups, companies, NGO, and most importantly, youth and children, I feel that I have 2 main missions. My first mission is to keep planting trees and do nature-based solution projects until it becomes our culture. And my second mission is to bring people together and keep spreading awareness until it gets translated in our literature. And capacity building being one of the main source when it comes to awareness, because when I went to these government schools, because over there I saw that they are the people who are actually being impacted by these problems, who are facing it. If they are taught even a little bit about this, if they understand the solutions, they could become real-time change makers. And that is exactly what I started to do. But I saw that if I wanted to bring a shift, I had to bring it on a 360-degree level. So let me talk about a mangrove plantation that I had done. So in the mangrove plantation which I had done, over there, I got the entire community involved into it, from the government official to the local bodies, to the villagers, farmers, the youth and children, everybody, because what I realized is when it becomes our tradition, then it becomes a part of our culture, it creates a real difference. And so I started to do these workshops with all the villagers and farmers, telling them about the importance of mangroves, because initially they were a little hesitant that whether we should do it, we should not do it, is it a good idea? But then when I spoke to them, when I told them how it contributes to community resilience, to carbon sequestration, they were all amazed and they were all willing to make a difference. And that is the power of when you build the capacity. And that is what I've been trying to do, to go to various communities, to go to these different government schools, go on the rural level and tell them about what I'm doing. Because of course, global is something that I've been doing across 20 countries, but locally making a difference, rurally making a difference is one of the most important aspects. And when you say that, capacity building needs to be a lot more simplified when you talk to them. So that is something that I'm working on. In fact, one of my recent initiatives, where in 200 schools of Tamil Nadu, I'm providing the climate action curriculum to each and every school and a fruit sapling to each and every child, motivating them. Because you will go to these children and then to us actually, because I'm also a child. When you come, and you suddenly start talking about United Nations, or you suddenly, even the basics about climate change and flooding and droughts and natural disasters, everything will just go above their heads. But when I told them that how I had this bond with nature, and then this happened, and I could not tell them that it is important to plant indigenous trees. So I told them my experience, that during Varda, I saw that few trees fell and a few did not. That was because the ones that fell were hybrid and the ones that did not were indigenous. They had the root system, they had fibrous roots. They have been in the soil for all these years and they are resilient. So when I told them through these anecdotes, they were able to correlate with it much more. They were able to understand the concept from the grassroots level. And parallelly, I also kept interacting with the villagers and farmers. So for them, I have this special project of agroforestry, where I associate agriculture with reforestation, which also contributes to their livelihoods. So when you build, and of course, the government officials, all the district collectors and block development officers, the panchayat president, the village heads, everybody, each and every level. Because when you connect with each and every stakeholder, when you associate with them, and it will take time. Because I want all of you to imagine a 6-year-old girl going to a government official or going to a landowner or a headmaster and saying, I want to do a tree plantation on your land. I want to do indigenous tree plantation to support biodiversity and to protect our planet. They will not be able to correlate so instantly. And it was very difficult to get the responses. So that is definitely there. But through these capacity building projects, I think we can make a real difference because we all have the potential to do it. And this is what I've been trying to do.
Thank you so much, Prasiddhi. I didn't even have to ask for a round of applause. It was natural that was the next thing that's happening. You're doing fantastic work.
Thank you so much.
And the entire panel here, there's like all sorts of perspectives. And I like this whole journey across past, the present, the length, the breadth, the multidimensional. I don't know where we've reached right now, but we're going to go towards the future because we need some direction of like a North Star or somewhere that we all need to go to. And we're going to talk about it from different sectors and perspectives. So I actually want to, I'll go back to Harjeet then because it's been a while since we've spoken to you. So from your work with CAN, where all of these different civil society organizations have organized and made such an impact on what policy looks like, on what the agenda here looks like, and inclusion looks like, representation looks like. What do you think the future of capacity building looks like in that network?
So it's my own experience of working of course, within CAN, both as a member. So I used to be with ActionAid for 20 years, and I played different role in the Climate Action Network, and now I'm part of the Secretariat. I was listening to Prasiddhi, and very impressive, Prasiddhi. I know we have been in touch very briefly, and would love to have more conversation. I think we need to, let me bring another dimension of capacity building. Because we do a lot of sessions, we do these trainings, and I think it's again, it's not an exchange. We somehow think that we are going to tell you what you need to do. I think that mindset is a problem, and that's where we need to bring about that change. And if I pick from my own experience, and that's why I was able to connect so much with what Prasiddhi was saying, I don't come from policy. You know, now you see me all talking of policy, whoever knows me. I'm a practitioner. I never studied policy. I was working on ground. I was part of tsunami program. I lived in Andaman Nicobar Islands, but then I realized that I need to work on this issue. I was working on disaster risk reduction. That's my window to climate change. But when I realized that I have to work on it, first I realized I have to work at the policy level. Only work on ground will not help. Then I realized if I have to look at the source of the problem, then I have to work on climate change. I started working on adaptation and loss and damage, and then I realized I'm still not working at the source, and I started working on fossil fuels. Look at my journey. It started with grassroots, but what is common was that connection that I could make, that why I need to work on that issue, and then the motivation to work on it. Now, if I take Prasiddhi's example, there are how many such children are there, even with that access, because you felt that connection, right? You felt that, and you felt motivated, and then you found a way to make things around. There was nobody doing capacity building for you. You did your own capacity building. So I think that's what I'm trying to communicate. Let's not think that capacity building is something that we are going to give to somebody else. But definitely what can help is the pedagogy, is the enabling environment, is the tools that you create. But all those things are not going to be useful unless you have a set of people who are self-motivated, who have found that connection, and who will then need some help on navigation, especially in this very complex space like COP. Where you can just get lost, you don't know what to prioritize, you can spend 2 weeks and you go back, you have learned practically nothing because you were like a butterfly. Right? Butterfly is a good insect, but I'm just saying, like a bee. If you're a bee, then you are producing honey. And pollinating at the same time. So I think we need to look at that perspective, and that's what my understanding is. You know, there are so many organizations who are working with CAN as a member, but not everybody steps up to that level. You know, we only find those people who have found that connection, and of course then we work hard through our structures and processes, create opportunities so that they learn and then be part of it and be part of that change. And that's how we have been able to influence policies. You know, you have seen how we were engaged on various aspects, particularly recent success on loss and damage, where CAN was very closely involved, and we really pushed hard on that.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for that, Harjeet. And that extra dimension, like, I think we're all about dimensions and like all sorts of directions. Love a very chaotic sort of panel, but so many great messages coming out of here. From someone who said that they haven't worked with policy, I mean, through their process, but has somehow ended up in it, to someone who's been working with policy across the many, many years, what would be your message to, perhaps to policymakers in the policy space on what the future of capacity building looks like, or how they should look at capacity building?
Well, I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to elaborate. I mean, the other day, with this story, the other day I was in the United States, in California, which is, I used to like, I used to call California my happy land because I went to uni over there. So I'm like, oh, California is like super green and all the nice things that California has. And I was in UCLA for a conference in which they were recognizing environmental genius leaders and people that are putting actions into place, and mostly young people. So from that perspective, I see future in the capacity building process because you have a very big and important US public university. You have founders of the biggest hotels, like Hyatt, that was the founder of that specific prize. investing in young people for them to like develop what they are supposed to be learning in a university, and at the end they are already doing like on their own or how they can. And at the same time, you have entertainers that are environmentalists. They call themselves, you know, environmentalists, and you have them producing, for example, Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth documentary. So what I see is that we have a policy framework that all the nations decided to put together. We have a need of implementing the Article 6 of the Convention and the 13 of the Paris Agreement, right? Is the capacity building one? No. 11, yeah. The 11 of the Paris Agreement. And like what we need to do is like on explaining to all these stakeholders how it becomes part of what they need to do, because at the end we talk about capacity building and its education. We talk about capacity building and it's raising awareness. We talk about capacity building and it's communicating properly like what you are doing. So at the end, I like from that experience in the US that I mentioned, the way in which, for example, the United States government uses the university research to make decisions and to bring to the table people that are scientists or that have a brief from a scientist. And the US probably is not the only country that does that. But at the same time, the US is a country that is funding a lot of capacity building programs for us to be trained, like the same program of Al Gore and other youth negotiator programs that are building capacity for people to be seated at the table. But ironically, the American youth don't have access to that because those leaders are putting into place those programs for the Global South. And then you have 60% of the American population not educated, not knowing what climate change is, and with the politicization of the climate topic divided. So I think like countries, like developed countries in their technology transfer, because we have common but differentiated compromises, right? And they need to train us and they need to transfer knowledge. But at the same time, they also need to look into their own people for certain topics like that one. And it resonates to me a lot because I've been trained in many countries because of this convention. I mean, if it wouldn't be for the Climate Change Convention, I wouldn't go to UK to do my master's degree. I wouldn't be trained in environmental conservation in Japan. I wouldn't know anything about forest fires and climate change that I was trained in Brazil. And like all of that is either South-South cooperation or a technology transfer program that came from a UNFCCC decision and they brought it to the ground. But how, like, those leaders put in the table their own young people or like mid-career life people that dream to be diplomat or whatever, and then you have a small country like the Dominican Republic engaging with this program in the communities. For example, the program funded by Al Gore, we have 3 youth over here sitting in the negotiations table, funded by the program, by the Climate Reality Project, and accredited as an official of the official delegation. And for example, American kids don't have that opportunity. Or my boyfriend is Italian and he has to wait many, many years to be able to engage with the government. I mean, he moved to the Dominican Republic to be able to work for a government. And actually, he works in the government of the Dominican Republic. Like, so those are the things that when we talk about like education building, capacity building, engagement, the engagement that can come from a decision, from a global decision, I know the compromise that those countries have, but also I think like they should engage more with building the capacity of their own people for them to take their future in their hands.
Thank you so much for that, Natalie. And speaking of, I know you made many references to young people, and we are running a little behind, so I'm going to have the rest of the speakers to sort of be a little more concise and sort of walk us through what they think the future of capacity building is within their sector. So you made references to young people. We have one right here, so I'm just going to move to Prasidhi now. What would your message to children and young people of today be in terms of what they would look at as capacity building as they go through their journey over the next years?
All right. So, if I'm taking a question right, what would my message to young youth and children be in terms of capacity building? All right. So, I feel that first of all, we as youth and children have a huge capacity to learn. Which is something there because we are always in the shift of evolving and learning and adapting. And whatever we will listen to, whatever we will see, we will get impacted or we will get inspired to do that. And I feel that if we talk about capacity building for youth and children, I think the one thing that is very important is for us to believe in the capacity that we have, to stop underrating ourselves, to start thinking in a way that we as youth and children can make a difference and actually take real action on the ground. Because this is something I often state, that because when I started plantation at the age of 6, I suddenly said that I want to plant 100,000 trees by the end of the year 2022. So there was an elder person beside me and he was like, Prasidhi, do you even know how many zeros are there in 100,000? So I really understood that he was thinking that I am small. And then I said that, do you know, I of course told how many zeros are there. And then I said, do you know the power of a small 4mm seed, which has the potential to grow into a 400 feet tall tree? If we just start to look at it in such a way, because once we believe it from our core, we will just do anything to be able to achieve that, to be able to look at it in a very different way. And that is the most important thing. And I feel that the message for capacity building would be to actually openly understand whatever is going on, to look at it and try to understand it from the very rough level. Because today, in this, having not much time, we really need to get started. We really need to get adapted to this, because today in this Anthropocene, where we have 3 central challenges, which is to mitigate and adapt climate change, ensure human well-being, protect biodiversity, it will not be easy for us to be able to survive, to be able to balance, to be able to adapt ourselves to these challenges. And capacity building will definitely play a vital role in this. So all I have to say to youth is that accept it openly, believe in the potential you have, and dream high, higher than the sky, think deep, deeper than the ocean, and act like trees, bees, and seas.
That was a wonderful and lovely message to all the young people and everyone else out here as well, I think. Dr. Joanna, what would be your message to the scientific community? And you've been working with different scientists, different universities, on what their focus should be in terms of building their capacities and the future that lies in front of us.
I think I'm going to give maybe a bit more unconventional answer. I think we need to build capacity in imagination. So there's under Nairobi Work Program, there's Resilience Frontiers, and I help with the lab in the COP in Madrid in 2019. And every morning we ask the question, 2040, what does the world look like when we have failed? And every single person would put their hand up and tell us all the awful things that happened. And then I said, 2040, you know what? We've achieved everything. We have a thriving world. We've reduced emissions. It's amazing. What does that look like? And I did not get any hands. Because we are so constrained in the systems that we live in that it's so difficult to see what a thriving future could be. And I feel like the scientific community can play a really big part in building the capacity for imagination.
building our capacity for imagination. I think that's already like one of those thoughts that you sit with and you need to really like, see how you can, what the limits are. And I think you could go beyond in every direction, as we have done in this panel. Given that we're running a little behind time, and AY already sort of mentioned that there is a culture shift that is happening, and we want everyone to sort of experience the culture shift that AY is also sort of doing and is part of the future of what the entertainment and music industry's capacity building is going to look like. So AY, quick message for the entertainment and music industry on how they can engage more, and then we can go into the surprise right after from there.
Yeah, not much to say. I just think that, music for impact is possible. And that's what I've been doing my whole life, right? You can use your music to power impact, to advance the 17 goals, to change the world.
Back to you. I think the audience is waiting and ready. So yeah, let's go for it.
I think they're playing a video, right?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to put up the video on our platform because we're running a little behind time. Would you want to just take it away and give us a flavor of what you've been doing? Yeah, just go for it. We're going right into it.
Hey, this is the song. This is the song for Goal 17. I can't hear myself.
Oh, sister, mister, look who's made a man's up. And now I can't find the reasons not to give up. Teachers, leaders, dreamers, let's go. They always take the right away. Leave the bell and let you pay. We can change the world. Is that a lie they told us? We can change the world.
Mic check. Can you hear me? Mic check. You guys with me?
We're gonna do
mic check. Hey, mic check. We got to come together. Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me? Okay. See, I don't like it any more than you do. How you guys doing? I'm AY. What's up? But in your ignorance, that bliss is void. Hey. Cause it's about time, be humble and realize that we are one and the same, unique and one of a kind. Hey, brighter days go ahead when we come together. So put your best foot forward, go and make an effort. They call me AY, I spoke to Akon. How you guys doing? Can we get some more music now? A little bit more music up, a little music up. Okay guys, 5 words. This is the anthem for Goal 17. My name's AY. It's called We Can Change the World. You guys sing it with me, okay? Say we can change the world. Is that a lie they told us? We can change the world. Done, guys. It's gonna take all of us together. Yo, we can change the world. So we got to come together now, baby. We got to come together now. Make some noise. How you guys? We're doing good. My name's AY. I'm making one song for each goal, right? And we're donating the profits of this Project 17 to organizations that do the work. Because I think in order to power change, we all have to come together, and it takes music as a vehicle. So guys, stand up, we'll sing together, and we'll get out of here. Say we can change the world. Oh, well done, every facet together. So we can change the world. UNFCCC. Make some noise for our panelists one time. What's up? We can change the world. Yeah. So we got to come together now, baby. We got to come together now. Oh, count 28, hello. We've got to come together, cop through the wind and stormy weather. Oh, we've got to come together. December the 7th, I'm doing a renewable energy powered concert, 100%. My name is AY. Come out to the Recharge. Thank you guys so much. We'll change the world.
That was fantastic. Can we have a huge round of applause for all of our speakers? We have officially kick-started the opening of the 5th Capacity Building Hub, and we're going to go right to the next session. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, over to the next organizers with the Building Climate Capable Governments. So we have a couple of, we're going to have a quick switch over, so please take your seats.